So yeah, Dan, those were really interesting points. I would like to just share my opinion briefly on what the arguments for abortion, as people always speak about. Being raped, it's a terrible thing that happens. It is out of the control of the people around you to have it take place. For example, in South Africa, crime is rampant, and if our government really wanted to change things, then rape would be literally non-existent.
Mm,
But because of our lenient laws, we can't avoid people being raped.
yeah.
Okay, most of the situations that take place is that police are understaffed, dockets get missing, and then when they go in, I just recently saw this week, they gave information with regards to how overwhelmed they are with having receiving so many cases that by the time they try to catch the rape victim, it's 2 years later already. And then the evidence that they found in the first 2 years, or let me rather say at that time, once it's only then processed, the evidence is useless and the person has been on bail for the past 2 years.
Wow.
And then they have to throw out most of the cases because people have moved on with their lives.
Wow.
So that's how weak our justice system is here. On the other hand, if there was a more stringent, you know, a more stringent consequence for rapists, no one would rape.
Mm.
Chopping off a certain body part, chopping off a hand.
Hey man, that's it's called mob justice, man. Some I've heard of stories like
You see, that's the issue with mob justice. It would go wrong because someone can
yes,
falsely accuse another
yeah,
person.
yeah, yeah,
And
100%.
for a mob justice to effectively work, people would have to then all be moral on the same moral standard,
Exactly.
basically.
And I think this whole thing goes back to like morality, man. You know, um, what standard?
Exactly.
Why is rape such a bad thing? You
Mm,
know,
mm,
people are sleeping around everywhere
mm,
with multiple partners, but
mm,
they get raped once, and it has a very traumatic effect
mm,
on them.
mm,
So why? What is the big deal of being
mm,
raped? What is
mm.
the you know?
There must be a
It's
spiritual element to it,
exactly,
of
man, and
course.
that's why sex is so sacred,
Yeah,
and it should
yeah.
be viewed in that, and it's
Mm,
lost that sacredness throughout the the leniency of these things.
mm, mm.
So
No, definitely. And rape in South Africa is quite a big issue. And although we don't see it on an everyday basis, it's bound to happen in our country. And what should have happened is that people should be able to hold each other accountable for these things.
yeah.
Um, personally, we don't say that we should go and burn those people that rape people. I mean, because Jesus didn't say that we need to fight or kill anybody. But he also says that when you do a certain thing, you will reap what you sow, of course. Okay, I'm paraphrasing now, but you
Mm.
guys know and have heard about it before that you will sow what you reap.
Mm.
Or
Okay,
I think what you're trying to reference is do unto others as you would want them to do
of
unto
course,
you.
love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the doctrine of Jesus Christ. And if we lived according to those principles, then we wouldn't have rape,
All these issues, man.
murder,
Mm.
stealing from one another,
Mm.
strife,
Mm.
fighting amongst each other, no racial issues.
Poverty, even.
Poverty even, yeah, no, definitely, because then we would have helped our
Yes.
neighbors. And then my body my choice, we obviously hear that one a lot, especially in first world countries and most university settings, major cities, of course,
Yeah.
such as Cape Town and Joburg. I haven't heard of any movement such as that in PE yet. I don't
Mm.
know about you guys. Daniel,
Yeah.
you still at university, you
Look, I
haven't come
was
across that,
I
but
was on that on that thing. Obviously, university is basically a place where when young people come to university, they get exposed to
yeah.
many philosophies and thoughts by their lecturers and even fellow students. I remember I was chatting to one girl, and then during our chat, she said
Mm.
something about deletus fetus, something like
Oh
that.
wow.
What? Can you repeat that?
I probably have to look up the chat real
The
quick.
elitist fetus.
Wow.
Did I hear that right?
Yeah, it was something along those lines.
What does it basically mean?
Let me just get the chat up real
It's
quickly.
no problem. While you find that, Ash, you wanna share anything about my body, my choice?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my body, my choice. But you have to remember there's another body in
Oh,
your body,
Yeah.
and what about its choice? What
shots.
about the
Shots fired.
what about the baby's choice? You know.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I got it here.
Okay.
But it's something like Yeetus, the wait, I got it. I had it. Yeetus the fetus deletus. So I basically asked her, well, I basically said it sounds sinister, and then she said, "Yeah, lol, yeah. No, it's something people say when they're referring to abortion."
Wow.
And so basically, I told her that what is it? She said. Then she said something like abortion is normal. I replied that it doesn't mean that it's. I said it. Yeah, it is normal in this culture, but it doesn't mean that it's great or that it's a good thing. So basically, that is basically a phrase that what is this? People on the side of my body, my choice would use. They're gonna be like, I can just delete this out of my body, out of my system, and and so forth. And it's a normal, and this my body, my choice has been normalized
Mm.
in and entrenched in the minds of young people going forward, saying that what is this? That you in control of your body per se. You can decide what comes in and what goes out. And if you want to get this fetus out of your body, you can delete it.
Wow.
And just so for me, like I said earlier, there seems to be like no consideration, or maybe in a sense, no trying of putting yourself in the shoes of the fetus in the situation.
Yeah.
How would you have felt being a fetus, and then your parents were probably talking and saying, "Yeah, I'm thinking of doing an abortion." You who has lived up to this age and probably are enjoying life, how would you feel? Right?
Sure.
So yeah, that my body, my choice thingy. And it's also very superficial. Most of the people who do say that either they have not thought deeply about what they're saying,
Yeah.
or they just been brainwashed in a sense.
Yeah.
No,
Or
definitely.
programmed to just
Yes.
have a certain amount of, certain facts, certain details, a
Yeah.
certain attitude and stuff. They've never really thought about it themselves.
I
would
mean, you
say.
can see like what's happening with mainstream.
Okay.
You know, mainstream, they pushing these kind of agendas. You know, like they,
Yeah.
all these different communities that are now rising and all of that kind of stuff, and they're all pushing forth agendas. And it's just moving to a certain point now where things that were forbidden in the past are now becoming more and more acceptable. And abortion is, unfortunately, it's one of those things.
Yeah, no,
You know?
definitely. And I always stand on the part where it's always out of ignorance that people are doing this. They're not educating themselves on the fact. They make sure that they avoid all exposure to what happens to the fetus once it's been extracted from the woman's womb.
Mm.
They turn their eyes away. They choose to ignore the fact of what happens to the baby, what happens to that baby once it's taken out. How does the baby survive outside of the womb? Where does the baby go? No one's asking those questions because nobody wants to go and find out about those things. So you know that term ignorance is bliss.
Mm.
I think people enjoy that type of life.
Amen.
You know.
Sure.
Is there any final remarks on those arguments for abortion that you'd like to add?
I would say just one thing from me.
No problem.
You know, there's probably a reason why it's called procreation.
Okay.
You know, the act of like, having a baby
Okay.
is called procreation.
Yes, it is.
So if you are doing the act or
Mhm.
taking part in the act of sexual intercourse,
Yes.
that is an act of procreation.
Yeah.
So anything that is outside of that,
Yeah.
what would you call that, man?
Hmm.
Is it procreation still?
Anti-creation.
Anti-creation, man.
Anti-creation.
And we can see like there's so many agendas being pushed forward now.
Yeah.
You know, and things that are moving far away from procreation. Same-sex marriages and
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
homosexuality. That's not aiding in procreation, man.
Yeah.
Two guys cannot have a kid.
Yeah.
Two women cannot have a kid.
Yeah.
You know, a male and a female were made to have sex and
Population would
procreate.
die out if that was the case.
Exactly, you know. So without that being there, we wouldn't be here.
We're a product of our parents coming together,
Yes.
male and female.
You know, and abortion is just another one of those agendas that I feel is surfacing now more than, yeah.
Of course, and like we established already, it's not spoken about in South Africa. It's somehow not an issue to address in our country. And why I say it's an issue to address is because there are outlets where people who can't afford to raise children, there are outlets for it. There are many outlets for it. But yet abortion is being pushed and it's just justified. And you know what? First world country influence has a real effect on our society.
Yeah.
Everything we watch has got to do with American TV shows. What do you
Yeah.
say, Daniel?
Yeah. Most of the content
Yeah.
that you watch is from America or UK secondary. I haven't really watched Australian stuff, honestly.
Border control.
yeah, that's
That's
definitely
all
why.
Australia and New Zealand are good for. The accents in border control.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. But I just want to jump to this topic over here quickly. What fetus actually means. Daniel, can you just have a look at that definition of what fetus means? And mind you, this is the definition that I got from typing it into Google. Okay.
All right, what is a fetus? An unborn or unhatched offspring of a mammal. Humans are considered mammals, right?
Apparently.
Okay, these scientists.
Yeah, you know.
In particular, an unborn human more than 8 weeks after conception. This is according to the Google definition. So, according to them, you have to be more than 8 weeks. So
Yes.
not right at the instance of conception.
Just reread that point again. In particular.
In particular, an unborn human being more than 8 weeks after conception.
An unborn human.
An unborn human after 8 weeks of conception. So what are they before those 8 weeks?
An unborn human.
You see, so they have to admit that it is a human that's unborn.
From the start.
You see.
According to that definition.
And what is a human?
What is a woman?
Human.
No, I'm asking the question as well. What is a woman? But anyway, Matt Walsh, shout out to Matt Walsh. But anyway, so clearly this is a contradictory statement because you have to ask yourself, what is an unborn human before 8 weeks after conception? And my question that I asked is it an alien then before 8 weeks? Is it a dog? Is it a cat? What is it before that 8 weeks if it's not a human still from the point of conception?
People would say it's a clump of cells.
A clump of cells.
Yeah.
Oh
I mean, we've
my
all heard
gosh.
this, right?
Have you seen
brother.
pictures of a fetus that's developing?
I have.
From the point where conception turns into a zygote and then it obviously develops into.
Yeah. Like, honestly, those are just terms to help. Terms to just.
Justify, yeah.
That's a good point.
No, wait. I want to speak more on a scientific.
Okay. Okay.
Those are meant to just be terms that describe a specific phase in the process of a conceived human being developing in the womb. The same way that you would define an infant, a toddler, a child, a teenager, and then a fully grown adult. It's still a human being throughout the whole process.
100%.
It's not, when it's an infant, it's not. It's not. It does when a person is an infant, it doesn't mean they're less of a human being compared to when they become an adult.
Yeah.
Of course.
So even when you have your term zygote and you have your term fetus and whatsoever that they use in scientific or in biology is just meant to describe different phases in the development of that human being.
Yeah.
So this definition obviously it's contradictory, but then I think also some people may be misinformed when they dealing with these biological
of course
thingies. Well, at least that's me when I think about it,
Yeah.
because it makes sense that from the beginning, if you talk about conception or fertilization,
Yeah.
what does it mean to be a human being? It means you have how much is it? 23 chromosomes or 40 something chromosomes?
I'm not sure about
Let's
the
call it
exact number
sugar.
though.
Yeah, but to have life is DNA,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
And DNA, in order for it to form,
Yeah.
these chromosomes, the specific number of chromosomes have to
Yeah.
be present in an organism, right?
Of
And if you
course.
have
Yeah.
those specific amount of chromosomes, right, those will now, what is this? The DNA will determine how the human being is supposed to develop,
Yeah.
right? So as soon you get a certain amount of chromosomes from your father, which
23.
is the sperm cell. You get a
Mm.
certain amount of chromosomes from your mother, which is the
Yeah.
egg. As soon as those combine or come together, that forms the amount of chromosomes that is needed to have a human being. And
Yeah.
as soon as that
The
happens, you
process,
have
yeah.
DNA, which is life.
Yeah.
So at that very instant, you have a human being that is starting to develop.
Yeah.
And it takes obviously the time of gestation or pregnancy. Right?
Mm.
So even if you use science itself
Yeah.
and you use it objectively
Yeah.
regarding depending on the topic that you're dealing with,
Yeah.
you will find that what people who are pro abortion are trying to say is contradictory to what science itself is saying, which they are trying to use to justify what they're doing.
Mm.
Definitely.
So, yeah, that's just probably something I would add to that.
Mm.
Anything to add, Ash?
No, I think Dan hit the nail on
Mm.
the
So,
head there.
so we can all agree that conception, according to Google's definition as well, is the point at which the sperm and the egg meet,
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
conception.
and that's where life begins.
That's where life begins.
Okay.
Amen.
So there's just a few things that I found as well. About 10 weeks within the womb. Okay. So after 10 weeks, the unborn baby is a fully formed human, but to be found the size of an apricot to the size of an orange. Some cases, that's how the size would vary.
And I think by fully formed, they just mean that all the body parts
Yeah.
are visible.
Yeah.
Right? So before the 10 weeks, the body parts are still taking shape and they form.
Exactly. It's just a very tiny human.
I've seen like pictures of that, man. It's like a
Yeah.
little tiny human,
Yeah.
but that can fit in your palm.
Correct.
Mm,
Correct.
That's crazy, man. That's absurd. You know,
Exactly.
that's a tiny person in there, man.
And it's crazy how that's how God, not crazy, but it's fascinating
Yes.
how God created that the woman carries that baby and
Mm.
it just forms and grows, and that the woman's body is built in such a way that it's able to hold that.
Accommodate, yeah,
You understand?
yeah.
And then to kill that creation of God. But anyway, it varies, and which does not help as it shows different information. So, next point that I want to put here is a few points that tell us what it means when a baby's at 10 weeks old. This is on a website called babybump.com. I don't agree with their word choices, to be honest, when I found it out, but most of it was talking about an unborn baby. Would you like to tell us there, Dan, what it says?
Where am I at that point?
Yeah.
At that point, the unborn baby, according to babybump.com, which okay, at that point, after 10 weeks, the baby is developing their major organs, such as their brain, heart, lungs, and limbs.
Okay.
They're forming joint movement and developing cartilage.
Hectic.
Furthermore, developing bones, hair, and fingernails start to grow.
Wow. At 10 weeks.
So there's some fingernails there. There's hair growing.
That is DNA at work right
That
there.
does not sound like a clump of cells to me.
Yeah.
No, that is DNA at work right there. Because DNA is life, and DNA is basically the blueprint on how a human being is supposed to develop and function.
Exactly.
So most scientists will agree that DNA is life. So if DNA is at work like that, that is definitely a human being. That is a loving person.
And this is according to a secular website called babybump.com.
I mean, DNA is a genetic makeup of like parents, man. Like
Exactly.
a man and a woman. They're coming together and they're forming this new creation, you know? and it's being shaped by God.
Glory to Jesus.
Amen.
So, yeah, do you want to add anything then?
I think we can go into like a local context. I guess.
Okay. Yeah,
This is
definitely.
more overall,
General, yeah.
general
Okay.
look at stuff.
So, what was fascinating is that I found out in the South African context is that in South Africa we allow abortion. This took place post 94. Okay. And I know you guys heard me say this many times as well, that how is it, and I like to use this line, how is it that if we were to build a rainbow nation in South Africa, how is it that in in order to build that rainbow nation, a policy had to be implemented where abortion was legal? Prior to 94, the apartheid government did not allow abortion in the country.
Yeah, man. People be using hangers, man,
Hey,
in
bro.
alleys.
I know that that was the case as well,
Mm.
but it wasn't allowed by the
It
national
wasn't
government.
legal.
It wasn't legal.
They weren't offering to kill babies.
No, definitely. Or offering support to administer these um, deeds, for lack of a better word.
Deeds.
Yes. So now, post 94, they implemented these abortion laws, and ever since then, it hasn't been spoken out against, neither by the church, neither by family members. But what I noticed in most cases is that you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. Most people in South Africa that we see choose to keep their children, as they have an alternative now to support their children, as in the form of child grant.
Mm.
So in a way, abortion is a bit hindered in that case, but it still takes place. It still takes place on a mass scale that we don't hear about. So
And and even in the South African context, another thing is a lot of illegal abortions, or what is this? It has a South Africa has a pandemic of these really, because you're also thinking now about the person, though the parent or supposed parent
yeah,
is making the choice of having an abortion.
yeah,
We also spoke about the negative effects earlier, or we mentioned it briefly, negative effects that abortion will have on the person who goes under that procedure. So I guess to mention this, South Africa has a issue of having illegal abortions, and then
yeah. That's crazy, eh?
these people are going to guide to people who are probably not really qualified to do this stuff,
Yeah,
and ultimately they also suffering consequences.
yeah,
So, what I want to say with that is, as much as we speak about pro life, we pro the life of the person
Yeah.
who's going through this abortion as well.
Mm.
That's why we're trying to give them knowledge on saying that this is
Yeah.
not something you have to do.
yeah,
Because the consequences of this is not just that this is being this human being is being killed, but you're also at risk.
yeah,
And especially now in South Africa, where most of them are going to these
back alley
illegal,
places.
yeah,
Yeah.
back alley places and stuff like that. So that's
Yeah.
like a South African issue.
Is there anything you want to add?
I mean, one of the biggest issues in South Africa is teenage pregnancies, man.
Yeah.
So
Oh, it's crazy.
you see, so that could be also adding to the numbers of abortion. You know, like you have school kids which are engaging in sexual activity because it's being normalized by mainstream media. You see it everywhere. You know, like you see it in movies, you see it in series,
Yeah.
you see it in all these
Yeah.
Netflix and chill vibes and all these things. You see these things happening and you think it's normal. It's fine. I can make my own decisions.
Yeah.
But then they can't deal with the consequence.
Yeah.
You see, so now you're in school.
Yeah.
You know, you're 12-year-old and
Yeah.
you think it's fine to engage in these activities, and then you suffer the consequence. And what do you want to do then? I don't want this. This is not for me.
Where do they get the idea that they don't want it, or
Because
this is not
they're
for me?
seeing on the mainstream media, they're seeing all these things of people living these lavish lifestyles. They have all these dreams and aspirations, but they didn't quite fit in what the consequence would be of engaging in this activity. Seeing it on TV is way different to reality.
It's true. They have the cushion of having that extra income from being on reality TV,
You see.
which we don't have here. They have that comfort of having that lifestyle supported, which we don't have here. You see?
Like the guy and the girl, they part of a nice family,
Yeah.
or and
Yeah.
they can afford to have it.
Definitely. So it's two
So
different cases, of course. So I came across this article on News 24, and I listed a few points from it. And in this article, it basically justifies the reason to abort. So from that, I'd like to make a disclaimer over here. Personally, don't trust anything News 24 says. You can use it as a point of reference, but always understand that there is a narrative that they are trying to push.
100%.
So in this article, it says there, if she's between 13 and 20 weeks pregnant, she can get an abortion under the following circumstances: if her own physical and mental health is at stake. Mental health is at stake. Okay. The baby will have severe mental or physical abnormalities. What does that mean? Basically, if your child has a chance of being Down syndrome, blind, not being able to walk, cripple, I should say,
Mm.
you have that's justified to abort your child. She's pregnant because of incest, because she's pregnant because of rape. This is now justifiable according to the law in South Africa. She is of personal opinion that her economic or social situation is sufficient reason for the termination of pregnancy. So in South Africa, you are able to terminate your pregnancy on the basis that your economic and social situation will be hindered.
Wow.
Yeah. And lastly, she can get abortion only if her or the fetus's life is in danger or they are likely to be serious birth defects. What do you guys think about that?
That's crazy, man. So if you aren't doing well financially, you can get an abortion
Hmm.
for that reason, for money's reason. You there's so many people that are out there that are willing to help.
Many
Yeah,
organizations.
that are willing to help and aid wherever they can, and yet that is one of the reasons why. Wow,
That's crazy.
that's a bit shocking.
And what's crazy is that the termination time with regards to abortion is 13 to 20 weeks. Daniel, what do you think about that? 13 to 20 weeks is the time period that you can abort a baby, even prior to 13 weeks.
For me, what I think about it is just convenience, convenience, convenience.
Hey, man.
Like whenever you want to do it, just know you can do it. Then there's, and there's just the normalization of the situation.
Yeah.
That's why for me, like I said, and I'm gonna repeat it, is that most of these people cannot and don't put themselves in the shoes of this human being that is literally vulnerable and under their power.
Yeah.
Because 13 weeks, 20 weeks, 34 weeks. The fact of the matter is, people are being selfish
Yeah.
when they really, what is this? Take part in this. And people will say, when they take part in this process of abortion, and people will say, look at the circumstances they find themselves in and what happened. But really, when you do think about it overall and holistically, it's ultimately selfish because that child is not has has no protection whatsoever,
Yeah.
especially when the person. So 13 weeks, 20 weeks, it just sounds like convenience to me.
And you know what's crazy is that what's the term of pregnancy in weeks?
Well, 9 months.
And 20 weeks is 5 months. That's more than halfway through the pregnancy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So you basically killing a half-developed, human being.
Yeah.
Halfway through the development
being,
stage. Development.
Yeah.
Development stage. So, yeah. The contents of the podcast are strictly the views of the Ouens on the podcast. Feel free to follow us on Spotify and Instagram to be notified about new content. Let's get back to the discussion.